just woke up this morning feeling spicy. You guys feel spicy? Because I do. All right. I don't know how to use this thing. Let's see what happens. Is this cutting off hair? I'm going to have to cut it shorter than that. Buzz it down, right? I think that this is too... it's getting hair. Let's see here. Maybe I got to cut it. There we go. Have I given up on America? I've also given up on coloring this hair because, right? Coloring my hair. Having my hair be long and luxurious. All that shit. Being skinny. Being hot. And all the things that the patriarchy wants us to be. Because clearly, they don't give a shit about us. And I'm talking to you too. Those of you ladies who have the internalized misogyny required to do what you did.
So women are not taking the Trump win well. They are shaving their heads, canceling their nail appointments, getting fat, and apparently sex strikes are upon us. First, I'm Hannah Cox with Base Politics. Welcome to my channel where I bring you my politically homeless takes on politics and culture. Before we dive in today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and of course, ring that notification bell so you never miss one of my episodes. Woo, guys, today is going to be a doozy. You know that I am pro-woman here on this channel, but we are going to have to stop, take a breath, and have a conversation. As you know, if you've been following me, I am no Trump fan and I have 99 problems with him. One of those being the way he and the people he surrounds himself with have approached women's issues. I've never voted for him. I've turned down jobs, big opportunities, and even money because I would not support him. And I have pretty serious concerns about a second Trump term, particularly one where Republicans control the legislature and gain an even larger majority on the Supreme Court. I often hear people say that like the first Trump presidency wasn't so bad or it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And I agree, but I also think it's important to know that that's because a lot of brave and principled people that he had hired stood up to him and thwarted his worst instincts, often at great personal costs. And because the courts held strong during those first 4 years, most people are likely unaware how often even Republican judges intervened during that time period. And that's fine. That is how the system is supposed to work. It's actually a brilliant system of checks and balances meant to restrain government power, frustrate autocrats, prevent systemic overhauls by rogue actors, and ultimately protect the Constitution. And it did. It worked. And that's a good thing that should have been celebrated more during those 4 years. My concern, though, is that those people are largely not who will be surrounding Trump this time. Instead, he is going to be surrounded by sycophants and simps who will seek to do his bidding no matter what. And I also suspect he's gotten a lot smarter about ways to foil that system of checks and balances. So I too think we could be in for a rough 4 years on many fronts. As I said earlier this week, I think there's going to be some things I like. I think there's going to be a lot of things I hate, but that would have been true if Kamala had won as well. But with all that being said, the reactions by many people online this week have been extremely hyperbolic and hysterical. And I really do think that their anger is largely being misdirected, and that's stemming from a fundamental misunderstanding of the system they live within and the motivations of people that disagree with them, and ultimately the actions that would lead to better political outcomes for them. I could really tackle this from about 10 different fronts, having observed the various camps of people on the left and their reactions to this outcome. And if there's interest, maybe this will be a short series, let me know. But today we are going to laser focus on the reactions of women to the Trump win, because unlike a lot of you men and haters in my comments, I actually do police my own side. So you got a little taste of it in my opening, but you need to watch a little bit more to truly understand the meltdown that is taking place online. Watch. All right, so this first video I'm going to mute because she put a Billie Eilish song in the background, so YouTube's gonna censor me if I try to include it. And for those of you on audio, I'll just read her captions. But it's a girl who is filing her nails down in her shower, and it starts by saying, "Today I canceled my nail appointment." She goes on to say she's cutting her nails short again and filing them down. She says she woke up at 3 a.m. to the news and couldn't sleep. And anyways, it goes on and on and on. I'm going to cut it at like the 30-second mark of her pity party here because I just can't take any more. But basically, yeah, she started getting her nails done a few weeks ago and now she's not going to do it anymore. And she's going to just boycott the nail industry, I guess. Next up, I also had to mute this girl because of her music, but it's a woman with a cat on her couch, and it says, doing my part as an American woman by breaking up with my Republican boyfriend last night and officially joining the 4B movement this morning. And it gets even worse.
This is all prank, right? Like we're just gonna wake up tomorrow morning and everything's gonna go back to the way it'll be a psych. It'll be like a really bad dream, and none of this will have ever happened, right? Like it'll be like the first time, and then we're all gonna pull through fine in 4 years. Correct? Please, someone tell me. I can tell you one thing right now, marriage is the farthest thing from on the table currently. So they screwed the pooch on that one if they thought that any of this was going to actually help with the whole family and kids department and lowering birth rates, because that, not even. Any semblance of thoughts I had or hope for that is completely going to be a no thanks for me, love. You think I would ever even dare bring a child into this country now? It was rough before. Now? No. That's cute. And the men, don't even get me started about dating. To think I was still entertaining a few moderates here and there sometimes. No, honey, no. Not even close. That's never goodbye.
I like my coffee like I like my men.
I am going to hold their hand when I say this, but making yourself physically unappealing is not going to fix things politically. It's actually probably just going to make you feel worse about yourself and further your mental health issues that you are clearly experiencing. I am all for pushing back on beauty standards when they are unrealistic or when they are inauthentic to you or that keep you trapped on a consumerism treadmill. But I also know, as much as people don't want to hear it, that ultimately people tend to listen to and trust attractive people more. So if you want to organize, if you want to build coalitions, if you want to lobby for or against legislation, you don't have to be like the most beautiful person in the world, but you do kind of need to be presentable. You do have to look like you groom daily and that you aren't crying in that shower while you groom. Like truly, I do not understand how these women think they are hurting anybody but themselves with this plan. Anybody but themselves, and also largely female business owners, because if you're striking against the beauty industry, it is mostly owned and operated, often at the local level, by women. And the irony here is that by trying to hurt the economy in this way, they're just continuing to miss the mark on what drove people to support Trump in the first place. In response to the video of the girl claiming she's not going to paint her nails anymore, I loved this comment that said, wait, so how is not having your nails done affecting anything? Like, the logic is not strong here. And another person said, I can't begin to count the nail appointments I've canceled under this administration and economy because I couldn't afford it. Looking forward to getting my nails done and a chiro adjustment next year. Like, whoosh, the point goes right over their head. People largely voted for Trump because they were economically desperate. And they have said as much for like 2-3 years. Democrats just didn't care. They did not care about the working class people. They did not care that people were hurting in their economy. They just kept trying to gaslight them and tell them, no, the economy's great. The economy's great. What are you talking about, you racist? It didn't work. It was never going to work. And it's so ironic that these people continue to somehow believe their own BS, that they are like the champions of the working class. No, you're not. You won't even listen to them when they tell you that they're suffering. Instead, you just keep pushing your socialist crap agenda because that's what you actually care about. And it hurts people. It's not hard to know that. You can study every single time any percentage of socialism has been attempted and watch it hurt people. Okay? You're not a bleeding heart if you refuse to learn economics. Period. Capitalism is what helps poor people. Socialism hurts them. And even if you refuse to accept it, and even if the people don't understand economics, they know that it sucks when they're experiencing it. And they're going to pick the closest option they can get to go in the other direction. And that's what Trump provided. Not full-throated capitalism by no means. That's why I've never supported him. But it's a hell of a lot closer than whatever the crap it was the DNC was offering. Aside from the very bizarre decisions to destroy their own looks, the anger at men in these videos is wild. For the record, only about 55% of men voted nationally for Trump compared to about 45% of men. So yeah, like men swung for Trump, but it wasn't in this just like crazy numbers. And number two, people had two options, only two, okay? I am so sick of all of these idiots coming online and pretending like because the masses voted for Trump, that all means that they adore Trump and are in lockstep with him and are co-signed to the worst parts of his ideas and his agenda. That is so naive and stupid. It's willfully uneducated. The vast majority of people did not like Trump. People tried to primary him. People tried their best to get anything but Trump on the right because they wanted an escape from Biden, but they didn't want him. And guess what? He had a concerted 30% of the GOP on lock. And because they were never going to vote for anybody else but him, and because the rest of those 70% of voters got split between multiple options in the primaries, he won. And all they could do was accept that. They had no other ability to vote against the insanity that we have seen from Biden and that we would have continued to see under Kamala. So you can't be mad at that for them. If you want that to be different, if you want a different situation, work to get rid of the two-party system so people have more options and so that the 30% fringes on the right and left can't control the rest of the country by picking their primary candidate that we all then have to live with. Get smarter. Good Lord. Like, I am fed up this week. If you actually listen to the vast majority of men talk about what attracted them to Trump, it is not because they are racist. It is not because they hate women. It's not because they want to subjugate women. I understand there is a loud little creepy crowd, the red pill community and their ilk online, that are in this camp. And I also agree the right has not done enough to disenfranchise them or to separate themselves from them. But I think too many people are starting to believe that they speak for the majority of the right or that anybody who voted for Trump is of that mindset. They're not. The men are saying things like, I want to be able to work. I want to be able to get a job. I heard a New York Times podcast last week talking to Black men here in Georgia, and they were saying, I want to be able to provide. I want to be able to have a family. I want to be able to take care of my wife and kids. This is not coming from a place of misogyny largely. It's coming from a place of economic desperation. Economic desperation that the left has largely created, and Trump too. Look, Trump absolutely did some idiot things in his first 4 years that directly led to the inflation we've been living with, and that's not talked about enough. But at the end of the day, when you have two options and you can pick the worst part of the economic agenda that we've had to live under, or you can pick something that seems slightly better, and people are desperate, they're going to go for the thing that seems slightly better. And women's reaction, or at least some women's reaction, is that they want to essentially boycott all men and opt into the 4B movement. Now, I'm going to have to define the 4B movement for you guys, I'm sure, because it is an extremely online conversation, but here's a quick summary. The 4B movement is a feminist movement from South Korea that emerged around 2019 as a response to traditional gender expectations in a highly patriarchal society. 4B refers to four rejections central to the movement's philosophy: rejecting dating men, marriage, sex with men, and having children. Proponents of 4B advocate for women's autonomy, seeing these choices as a means to avoid traditional structures they argue often lead to inequality and oppression for women in South Korea. The movement empowers women by promoting independence from the pressures of traditional heterosexual relationships and family obligations. Though popular with many younger women seeking control of their lives, the 4B movement has sparked debate. Critics argued that its principles can be overly radical, possibly alienating those who might still want traditional relationships with men but advocate for equality within them. Others raised concerns about the sustainability of the 4B lifestyle and whether it addresses the root causes of gender inequality. Despite the controversies, the 4B movement has influenced broader discussions on feminism, gender norms, and social equality, and is often seen as part of a larger shift in South Korea's feminist landscape. So now you have a bunch of American women saying that they are going to opt into the 4B movement because Trump won, and they want to punish men for that. And one weird thing I observed is the number of women in their comments being like, oh, guess I'm already in it. I've been doing this for a long time. And it kind of made me laugh because it's sort of just like the foil to the incel movement, the involuntary celibate movement, except these women are claiming it's by choice. But I'm like, how much is it by choice if you've already accidentally been doing it with no agenda? And listen, I'm not saying that I wholeheartedly reject it. I do think that women need to be a lot more careful and picky about the men they give attention to, the men that they sleep with, when and under what circumstances they get pregnant, particularly given the, I think, asinine abortion restrictions that we have in many states, including Georgia. Like I don't want to have kids, period, but I would be very hesitant to try to have a baby right now because these healthcare restrictions are getting women killed, women who are trying to have babies, but because the laws were written so abysmally by imbeciles in state legislatures and because doctors are afraid to operate because they might get prosecuted or have their livelihoods taken away, are being overly cautious, and it is getting women killed. Mostly women who aren't seeking abortions, by the way, mostly women who are trying to have kids. This is why big government is always bad. Government healthcare, always bad. So yeah, like I think there's some credence to that. I certainly think some men's bloodlines need to dwindle off. I certainly think women need to be much pickier about who they are participating in intimacy with. I think it would clean up a lot of the issues in our culture and in dating if they were. But to go to the extreme position of swearing off all men, swearing off ever having marriage, ever having kids, like that's sad. Marriage with the right person, emphasis on the right person, is one of the best and most wonderful things that can happen to you. For many people, having kids is incredibly fulfilling and gives them purpose and is like the great joy of their lives. And ultimately, loneliness and isolation is not good for anybody. People need companionship. And in society, we need men and women to get along. So I think the 4B movement is extreme. I think it's an overreaction. And I don't really think that it is an answer to the problems that we have with gender inequality in relationships. In order to fix that, you have to actually be in the field. You have to actually be the man in the arena. You have to be doing the work of creating equality in your interpersonal relationships. I've done that with my husband. He's done that work with me. It takes effort. It takes work. It takes communication. And it's not a one-stop shop. It's an ongoing bit of work that we do. But you have to do that as a woman if you want things to get better. You can't just remove yourself and isolate yourself and pitch a fit in your closet. That doesn't change anything. Furthermore, I wanted to poke around and see, are sex strikes ever actually effective? Because one, I'm calling their bluff. I know how women are. I don't believe you. I don't believe you're going to be celibate for that long. I just don't. I went to ChatGPT to get a quick summary, and it said, sex strikes have a long history as a nonviolent form of protest, often initiated by women to effect social or political change. While they have occurred in the U.S., their effectiveness has been mixed, and they're typically more symbolic than directly impactful. But they did note 2 instances where apparently sex strikes were effective. One was in Liberia in 2003, where women used a sex strike to pressure leaders to negotiate an end to the Second Liberian Civil War. And they say this action helped bring about peace talks and ultimately contributed to ending the conflict. So that's kind of cool. The other one they say was in Kenya in 2009, where women organized a sex strike to promote political reconciliation among leaders. Within a week, the leaders began taking steps to resolve their differences. So per usual, when it comes to protest, if people are smart and intentional about it and they have nonviolent strategies that involve civil disobedience, or I guess sex strikes in this case, and they have a targeted and precise target thereafter, then it could be effective. But going on strike because 55% of men decided to vote for one of 2 candidates and you don't like that choice, you're not going to get very good outcomes there. What's going to change? Nothing gets better until people have more options.
If you thought you were involuntarily celibate before, wait until you see what women are like when they realize that having one of your babies could cost them their life. Oh, you definitely won't be getting any. And you know what? It's what you deserve. But now these women can focus on their careers. They can focus on their female friendships. You already hate the fact that there are rich aunties out there, child-free and happy. You just made even more of them. You said you were going to get your passport, but you didn't do that. You said there's no need. You can change the laws right here. Good luck with that, because these women aren't risking it. But shout out to the child-free women who are really appreciating the life that they're living, where they're not with a man who thinks that everything that has to do with that child is your responsibility. You thought that you were really going to stick it to women, but what you really did was you're going to let them realize how amazing life is for some of them without children. Some of your genes do need to die off. So I know you wanted a legacy. You wanted a little mini-me to be as mediocre as you are. Now you won't even get that.
You know, I was thinking with last night's results, with so many guys complaining in the past about dating being so tough nowadays, they couldn't find a woman, women are so picky. Well, guess what? It's going to be practically non-existent now. Many of you have pissed off millions of women. I'm talking generations of women as of last night. And if you thought dating was bad before, it's going to be non-existent now. If you wanted a family and have kids, that's probably not going to happen because, again, I've got 3 kids. I know there's so many things that can go wrong while a woman's pregnant. and it's a blessing to have a healthy baby at the end. But the risk a woman may be taking now with limited options to protect her, I think many are going to reconsider having families in general. So again, that is off the table for a lot of people. But again, this is what you wanted.
I don't know, you guys. I mean, I think we already have a situation where it's incredibly difficult today. I actually talked to my husband about this for like 30 minutes this morning. I was like, tell me what you experienced in the wild before you met me. And it was interesting because it really does seem like there's a huge mismatch of men and women out there where like there's a small percentage of women who are really serious and want commitment and are emotionally mature and ready for it. And same goes for men, and they are just not connecting with one another. And it's a problem. And increasingly, I've talked about in the show, people don't want to date people who have different political views than they do. And because you see the women siloing off to the left and men siloing off to the right, you've got an ever increasing divide between the two of them, which is bad for actual relationships. It's also bad for our country and the partisanship and the toxicity that we're living with. And I don't even think it's that men and women are that apart on issues, because the two-party system allows people to just pick a tribe that they kind of identify with based largely off vibes and maybe one or two things they think they know about it, and they're often even wrong about those. And then they just turn their brains off. They don't think about things issue by issue. They don't think about things candidate by candidate. They don't think. And I think that's one reason people are attracted to the system. They don't actually have to think. They just get told what to think by the party, by their leaders, by whoever's in power at the moment, and they march around like the good little soldiers that they are. But really, if most men or most women sat down and started talking to one another and actually were capable of discussing issues, which I guess most of them probably aren't, they would find they're probably not that far apart. Like I'm saying right now, if most of these women sat down and talked with men and figured out why they actually voted for Trump, they would largely find out it's not because they're a bunch of Nazis. That's ridiculous. But because these women are being fearmongered by their leaders to think that, they aren't even bridging those conversations, right? And I do want to emphasize, these women are being fearmongered. I mean, a lot of them really are quite scared right now. They have been fed utter garbage by the left in order to try to win, but they have internalized it, and they are genuinely afraid. Like, listen to some of the things they genuinely believe are going to happen now that Trump has won.
I took the morning to grieve. That's all the time we have. Now is your time to start making a plan. Women, I'm here to talk to you today. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to delete your period tracking app. I don't care what state you're in. Go into your history, take out a paper planner, write down your history so that you have it, because I know that you track it, you use it to track ovulation and all of that stuff. You can't do that in an app anymore. Before you delete the app, you're going to delete your data out of the app. That's not a sure way to make sure that they can't use it against you later, but it helps. Next thing you're going to do, you're going to get Plan B, or its prescription equivalent. If you are comfortable getting the prescription, you can go to your doctor, and sometimes you can get it for free. That version, I think, is called Ella. And then if you are not comfortable or unable to do that with your doctor, go get Plan B in cash at your local pharmacy. You're going to get on some form of birth control. You're going to get the pill, you're going to get the implant in your arm, you're going to get the IUD, you're going to get your tubes tied. I don't care if you're not sexually active right now, because guess what? That doesn't mean you're not going to get pregnant. And speaking of that, I'm sorry. Don't get pregnant right now. I'm sorry. It's your life. You do what you want. My advice to you for your safety is to not get pregnant right now. I am not going to get pregnant right now, even though I would love to have a family one day. That dream just went out the window forever. Unless I move to another country, I am not having a baby in the United States. I won't do it. Another thing that you may really disagree with, but I'm going to tell you anyway because I care about you and I want you to be safe. If you and your male partner voted differently this election, if he voted for that man, you need to leave him. You need to leave him. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You need to leave him. I know you love him. I know you love him. I know you think he's going to change. I know you think he just doesn't understand your problems. I know that you think he's more concerned about the economy. But especially if you're married to him, you are in danger right now. You are in a lot of danger. Speaking of marriage, I wouldn't get married right now. If you do, get a really, really strong prenup, but I can't promise you that that's going to be honored. I mean, I wouldn't be getting married right now. I would have your own bank account. I would have your own money. I would be saving that money. That's another thing. Save your money as much as you can right now. No frivolous spending. Be careful for the holidays. You need to be conserving your resources right now. Why did I say you shouldn't get married? Because it's possible that in the future you're not going to be allowed to divorce him. You're going to enroll in self-defense classes. You're going to get a personal trainer. You're going to carry. I don't know what that looks like for you, but you're going to do something to make sure that you can defend yourself so that you don't get raped in a dark parking lot.
Like, I guess the ultimate good here is that she's now pro-Second Amendment and wants to defend herself, which is the baseline of actual women's rights. So that should be encouraged. But like, this is so sad. Trump is not even that extreme on reproductive issues. Actually, it's your state lawmakers. That's who you need to be concerned about, okay? These bozos in your state capitals, or who needs your smoke. Trump is kind of like, yeah, let the states decide and I'm out. He is not like how he's being painted on some of these subjects. And the same thing goes with like his stance on LGBTQ rights. I've seen so many people being like, my marriage isn't going to be valid anymore. My identity is not going to be valid. He's pro-gay marriage. I'm pretty sure he's officiated gay marriages. He was more pro-gay marriage going into office than any other president has been in history, more than Obama was. Like, what are you talking about? What are you smoking? He's not going to come in and try to ban birth control. And I really do think, while I have concerns about the checks and balances and them holding against him this term, I don't think it's going to be a free-for-all. He cannot just come in and take away your ability to get contraception. Whew, this is exhausting. And to be clear, these women are not just mad at Trump. They're also mad at other women. I think about 30% of women also voted for Trump. So for all you like idiot repeal the 19th people saying like women don't know how to vote your way, like women are pretty evenly split. I mean, again, like it's a little bit more drastically one side than the other when it comes to women versus men, but people have two options. I'm going to say it till I'm red in the face. Like, good God, what do you expect people to do?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there's a blue bracelet that we need to wear because I want to make sure that nobody ever thinks that I am one of the apparently majority of white women who voted for Donald Trump. I do not want you ever to think that I was one of them. So, is there a particular bracelet? Do we just make it ourselves? Let me know.
So yeah, I guess get your blue bracelets. Like, oh my God, the left is so infantilizing. Like now they have friendship bracelets to identify one another. It's like you're like a Taylor Swift concert or something. Grow up. Logan and I were talking about these reactions. Logan's my husband for the record, and the 4B movement. And I was saying, you know, I do get to some extent that women are tired of their options in the dating world, that they're constantly getting cheated on and lied to and often financially abused or real abuse. And they're just fed up. And I get why people would want to like opt out, because while I think there's problems with women in dating too, we were talking about it this morning, they aren't to that level, okay? Even Logan couldn't tell me any instances that he had that kind of met that level that women deal with, whereas I can name myself and my friends have all had those kind of experiences with men online. And he said, but could you really argue that men are worse today than they were in history? And I was like, actually, no, that's such a great point. And he was saying nowadays, the men he knows, men like him, men who are around him, his colleagues, like the way they think about women's rights, the way they think about gay rights are so much more enlightened than how men in his grandfather's generation or even his father's generation would have thought about things. And he's 100% correct on that. Like, yes, men are not perfect. They never have been, and neither are women. But really, when you look at how we've advanced as a civilization, the number of men who are good, solid men who actually do love women, who respect women, who see them as equals is certainly at a higher percentage point now than it has ever been in history. And I think you can even see evidence of the fact that most of the people who voted for Trump were not voting against women's rights. In fact, in many states where they had the opportunity to vote on things like abortion reform, people voted in favor of easing abortion restrictions and also voted for Trump. And I think this is something that many people on the right have always seen as the benefit of sending it back to the states. These issues can be handled separately at the state level. Not only do I think these women are completely off base with their malignment of men on this front, I also think they are very entitled and somewhat sexist in their attacks against other women who voted for Trump. Because while many of these women can only conceptualize women's rights as pertaining to abortion rights, the fact is that many women who voted Republican, who voted for Trump, also felt like they were voting for women's rights. And I would agree with some of their stances. Second Amendment rights are women's rights. They are the fundamental bedrock of women's rights. That's a right-wing issue. Economic stability. That is a essential thing that women need to have rights. They need to be able to work. They need to be able to provide for themselves. The right is unquestionably going to be at least better than the left would have been on that front. Parental rights are also essential women's rights, and those have been under attack by the left, especially over the past 4 years. And while I largely disagree with the right in its culture war against trans people, I will say that the trans agenda has gone off the rails, completely off the rails. It has gone so far past acceptance of people who are trans, which I think we were at probably 95% in the culture before they started this BS. They have gone so far. And for many women, they feel their spaces are under attack. They feel they are unsafe because of it. They feel like their abilities to succeed in sports are diminishing. These are women's rights issues too. People have got to get out of their echo chambers. You look extremely foolish and ridiculous online when you come on and behave this way, and you show your whole ass. You show you've done absolutely no work to understand your opposition. And anybody who is actually good at politics knows that that is the first step. If you want to create actual change, you have to be able to get to know your opposition and to be able to outcompete them and out-debate them and outwork them. These women are failing on all fronts. But I want to be clear. My hope is not that we go and attack these women, especially because many of them do seem to be having some mental fragility issues. We need to be gentle with them. We need to actually do outreach to them. We need to assuage their fears and concerns. We need to have open dialogue, and we need to start finding ways that we can actually come together on issues, of which there are so many across the left and right, where we should be able to work together and set this extreme fear-mongering hatred of one another to the side. It's not going to get us anywhere. Men and women do not need another thing dividing them. Our country cannot survive with men on one side politically and women on the other. Americans have got to start getting to know people who think differently than them and actually seeking understanding. Most Americans are not Nazis, nor are they Marxists, which should be treated as an equally dirty word, I think. Most Americans are just trying to pursue the American dream in a political environment where they are increasingly given shitty candidates. Democrats, for their part, need to be listening, need to be learning, and need to be reforming some of their approaches and beliefs right now. You're not going to browbeat people into voting against their own interest, and refusing to engage with or speak with men because you're mad you lost is only going to put you further in your echo chamber and also prevent men from learning about things that matter to you. What they're doing isn't politics, it's just performative histrionics, and it doesn't help anybody. All right, guys, I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to this channel if you've not already, and if you want even more content, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok.